Welcome back. Okay, so a news video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, February 11th. Starting with Philadelphia news. And when Philadelphia is in the news, it's not normally really happy news, and this is the case here too. Sean Couturier, who I've argued is MVP when he's on top of his game and playing well, he's had surgery. He's out for the season. So his season is done. Kevin Hayes, Chuck Fletcher saying that there's a 50-50 chance Hayes plays again this year. Hayes and Couturier being out is huge. And while there's other teams that have absorbed maybe bigger losses, right? The reality is that Philadelphia doesn't quite have the depth that some other teams do, and I think that's part of the reason why they're where they are in the standings at this point. And then for Ryan Ellis, who was picked up from Nashville in a trade, they were very excited about what Ellis might bring to them. We may not know what Ellis might have done because in the next couple of weeks, there will be a decision on whether or not he needs surgery for a lower body injury that has kept him out of the lineup for quite a while. So overall for Philadelphia, this year has been a write-off, continues to be a write-off, and I think they're into, well, we'll figure this out next year territory. I think they've been there probably for a little while anyways. But yeah, so for Philadelphia, again, I wish the news was good news, but here we are. Speaking of wish it was good news, Prince Edward Island's minor hockey AAA, 5 players have been suspended 25 games for racial slurs that were directed towards a 16-year-old black goaltender, both from the stands and then later at the hotel. And this was in November. There's been an investigation, and so the suspension is 25 games. They also have to undergo training in between now and when they return in order to be able to return to the game. But yeah, so 25 games for 5 players, and I'm sure there will be more about this story in the coming days and weeks and whatnot. But it's not a great look, and let's hope that this is the last of these stories we're talking about for a while. So deep breath, moving on from that heavy subject matter back into injury news and stuff around the NHL. Troy Stecher hoping to return tomorrow for the Detroit Red Wings. I mentioned him in the Detroit video yesterday. He's only played 6 games so far this year. He's an unrestricted free agent this summer. It will be interesting to see what Detroit does with their blue line at the deadline, if anything, and whether or not they do actually think about offering up a defenseman, whether it's Stecher or somebody else at the deadline to try to get more picks, prospects, or what Steve Yzerman's going to do. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Detroit once we get in and around the deadline, which is 38 days away. So we're less than 6 weeks from the deadline. It could be a very active one this year, although it's taking a while for us to start seeing actual deals making news, right? Stecher coming back. Hope that is tomorrow against Philadelphia, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. For San Jose, so they're going into the trade deadline as well in kind of a no man's land position of maybe they can make it, maybe they won't. And they're working on at least talking extension with Tomas Hertl. Hertl's an unrestricted free agent this summer. In the event that they're unable to come to an agreement on some kind of a framework for a deal, I kind of expect him to get traded. Now, again, what's interesting is if San Jose's in the hunt, I don't think we see a Hertl deal being made that means they're throwing in the towel. I would think that there'd be a hockey move made where it's dollars out, dollars in, and maybe they're trying to add something as well on top of that. But Hertl's been a very important player for them. Him and Timo Meier have, I think, been the most valuable players for that team. And so it's important that they do their best to try to hold on to Hertl. We shall see, though. And of course, Logan Couture is their leader, and Logan Couture is the guy who, if anybody can get them in the playoffs, it might be Logan Couture. Coming out of last night's game, it was a 5-2 loss for the Montreal Canadiens. You would be forgiven for going, well, new coach, same results. Marty St. Louis doesn't feel that way. Marty St. Louis saw a lot of positives out of last night's game. And you have to like the enthusiasm of a new coach. And he mentioned that if that second goal by Caulfield had counted, if it hadn't been ruled offside, who knows what might have happened. So Marty St. Louis, that positivity, I hope he's able to hold on to that. It's been a long year for Montreal. And honestly, if he can figure this out, there is still a solid enough roster in there somewhere that I think Montreal can win, say 10 games between now and the end of the season. Sure. And just get away from that conversation about being one of the worst teams in history, maybe. So yeah, I think that hiring Marty St. Louis, and it's interesting too, right? Because we talk a lot about how in hockey, in the National Hockey League especially, you will see guys recycled. So the new coach is an old coach from somewhere else. Montreal, in both picking their general manager and their coach, looked for somebody who didn't have that experience. It will be interesting to see whether that backfires, whether it turns out to be a really good idea, what happens with Montreal. But so far, Marty St. Louis keeping his spirits up. That's the spirit. So for Edmonton, with Cassian being on LTIR at this point, as well as Keith being on the IR, you have to call guys up. So Niemelainen and Broberg have been recalled. Broberg, I was impressed with in the games that he played earlier this year. We'll see if he's able to pick it up where he left off. Right now, they are 6 points behind both Anaheim and LA for that third spot in the division, or that second wildcard spot. They have 4 games in hand on Anaheim, 3 games in hand on the LA Kings. This is a race that could end up going down to the wire. But for the Oilers, they need to be able to win those games in hand. And I think that's part of the reason why Ken Holland made the move when he did, because he realizes they're right on the precipice of just falling right out. Like out of contention altogether. So we'll see what happens with Edmonton. Whereas their neighbors to the south in Calgary, they're doing pretty well. They, with last night's win, they're now 3 points behind the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and they have 4 games in hand on Vegas. So they have an excellent chance of ending up passing them if they win those games in hand, right? Their goal differential is also very impressive. It's one of the best in the league at plus 41. So the goal differential is excellent for the Calgary Flames. And when you want to look at it from a perspective of what are the best in the league, Colorado and Florida both have a plus 55. Carolina has a plus 53. So Calgary's right up there with the others, and we'll see whether or not they're able to stay there. But if they end up finishing first in the division, this is where the conversations would start of, okay, they're first. What happens when we get to the playoffs, right? Because last time they were first, they lost in the first round against Colorado. If Calgary finished first, they would play in the first round. If it started today, if they were first in the division, it would be St. Louis. And if it was Calgary, St. Louis in the first round, who would you take? And that's, I think, a valid question. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.